Clarity creates direction. Without clarity, even the most motivated individual will find themselves walking in circles. Think about it. If you don't know exactly what you want, how will you know when you're getting closer to it? How will you measure your progress? How will you maintain your energy and your focus when life starts to pull you in different directions? Too many people wake up every day with no defined aim. They move through the hours reacting instead of creating, responding instead of leading. They do things because others are doing them, because society says it's the path, or because it's what they've always done. But there's no fire in that. There's no clarity, no target, no vision. And without vision, people perish, not always physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually. They perish in terms of purpose. Clarity is what separates the achievers from the drifters. It's not talent, it's not luck. It's the ability to say, this is who I want to become, this is where I want to go, and this is what I must do to get there. When that sentence becomes part of your mindset, your behavior shifts. You stop saying yes to distractions, you stop following the crowd, you start owning your calendar, your energy, your habits. Clarity is not a one-time event, it's a discipline. It begins with honest reflection. Ask yourself, what do I really want from my life? Not what others want for me, not what I think will impress people, not what looks good on social media. What do I want? Is it financial freedom? Is it peace of mind? Is it better health, stronger relationships, mastery of a craft? And once you've identified it, go deeper. Why do I want that? What will it give me? Who will I become in the process of achieving it? The mistake most people make is trying to pursue progress without defining what it means to them. They chase general ideas like success or happiness, but those are not goals. They're outcomes, and outcomes need structure. They need a process behind them. That process begins with clarity. You don't need a 10-year life plan with every detail mapped out, but you do need a direction, a compass, a reason to say no when distractions show up. A reason to wake up early, to stay focused, to put in the work, especially when you don't feel like it. Clarity brings power to your decisions. When you know your aim, decision-making becomes faster, easier, and more effective. You're no longer paralyzed by choices because you've already chosen your outcome. Every yes and no now serves that aim. If something moves you closer to your goal, it stays. If it doesn't, it's out. Simple doesn't mean easy, but it does mean possible, and the clearer your goal, the less energy you waste debating yourself. Clarity also gives meaning to discomfort because progress is uncomfortable. Growth requires sacrifice, but when you're clear about why you're doing it, you're more willing to endure. You don't complain about the work because you see the result it's building. That's why athletes can train for hours. That's why entrepreneurs work through setbacks. That's why artists endure rejection. Clarity makes the pain worth it. It gives your struggle a purpose. Most people don't burn out from working hard. They burn out from working aimlessly. They put in energy, but it's scattered. They're busy, but not productive. They check boxes, but don't feel fulfilled. Why? Because they're unclear. Clarity cuts through that fog. It brings alignment between your actions and your purpose. And when your actions are aligned with your purpose, progress feels natural. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it does mean it's right. Clarity also allows you to measure growth. If your goal is vague, your progress will be vague. I want to be healthier means nothing unless you define what that looks like. Is it a certain weight, a level of strength, a habit of eating clean 5 days a week? I want to be financially free. Sounds good. But what does that mean? Zero debt, $10, zero saved, passive income streams. Clarity turns dreams into data. It gives you a target. And when you have a target, you can track how close you're getting. You can see what's working and what's not. It's also important to understand that clarity is not static. As you grow, your vision will evolve. What made sense at 25 might feel limiting at 35. That's okay. Clarity is not about locking yourself into a narrow identity. It's about aligning your present actions with your current values and future vision. So review your clarity regularly, sit with yourself, adjust the vision if needed, but don't drift. Drift is deadly. You don't want to wake up 10 years from now realizing you climbed the wrong mountain. Clarity also boosts confidence. When you know what you're doing and why you're doing it, you walk differently. You speak with conviction. You move with purpose. Other people notice that. They start to trust you more. Opportunities find you, not because of chance, but because your energy is magnetic. People want to follow someone who knows where they're going, and that's what clarity gives you. It gives you leadership over your own life. Another benefit of clarity is momentum. Every time you act in alignment with a clear goal, you build momentum, and momentum makes the next step easier, but it only happens when your direction is focused. If you're trying to move in 5 different directions at once, you'll feel stuck. You'll take 2 steps forward, then 3 steps sideways, then spin in place. That's exhausting. But when your aim is clear, even small steps feel significant. You're not just moving, you're moving forward. Clarity doesn't eliminate obstacles, but it helps you face them when the road gets tough, and you'll be tempted to quit, but clarity reminds you why you started. It gives you a reason to persist. When your mind is clear, the excuses lose their power. The delays, the doubts, the distractions, they still show up, but they don't stop you, because your clarity speaks louder than your fear. In practical terms, gaining clarity doesn't require magic. It just requires time and honesty. Set aside quiet time to ask yourself the hard questions. Write down your answers, refine them, read them daily if you have to. Let them become the lens through which you view your choices. When opportunities arise, ask, does this support my vision? When challenges appear, ask, how can this serve my growth? Clarity isn't about being perfect. It's about being intentional. It's about choosing your path instead of letting life choose for you, because if you don't define your direction, someone else will. Society will, your boss will, your environment will. And you'll end up somewhere, but it might not be where you meant to go, and that's one of the saddest places to be. So clarity, real, meaningful, focused clarity, is not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's the foundation for all sustainable progress. Your daily routine is the foundation of your future. Every day, whether you're aware of it or not, you're building your life through your habits, your choices, and your consistent actions. You don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And your routine is your system. It is the architecture of your results. If you want to change your life, you don't start with the goal. You start with the day, because your life is made up of days. You stack enough good days together, and you build momentum. You stack the wrong ones and you create regret. Most people underestimate the power of what they do daily. They think the small things don't matter. A skipped workout, a missed journal entry, a careless scroll through social media instead of reading a chapter. These seem harmless in the moment, but compound them over time and they become powerful. Progress or decline is never the result of one big decision. It's a series of small decisions repeated until they either build something strong or break something down. Success doesn't show up suddenly. It grows slowly in the soil of consistent effort. Think about a tree. It doesn't sprout overnight. It takes root quietly underneath the surface, long before anyone sees the growth above ground. Your habits are the same. The effects aren't always immediate, but they are always working, whether for you or against you. That depends on your routine. The challenge is, routines are easy to ignore because they feel mundane. Repeating the same steps every day can seem boring or mechanical, but mastery lives in repetition. Champions don't train when they feel like it. They train daily. Artists don't paint only when they're inspired. They work constantly, even through blocks. Entrepreneurs don't build success by one big breakthrough. They do it by showing up every morning and executing the plan. It's not sexy, it's not loud, but it works. If your days are scattered, your results will be scattered. If your mornings start with chaos, you carry that energy through the rest of the day. But if your routine is intentional, if your day is designed with care, you take control of your momentum. You begin to guide your direction instead of drifting through tasks. A strong morning, for example, can change everything. Waking up early, reviewing your goals, feeding your mind with something positive, moving your body, even for just 10 minutes. These set the tone. They aren't just tasks. They are signals to yourself that you are in charge, signals to your subconscious mind that this day matters. When your routine is aligned with your vision, discipline becomes easier. You don't have to force everything through willpower. You just follow the pattern you already set in motion, and when you do it enough, it becomes part of you. At that point, it's not a matter of trying to be productive. You are productive because your identity starts to shift. You go from someone who wants change to someone who is living it. The truth is, routines either serve you or sabotage you. There's no neutral. Think about how most people live. They wake up late, rush through the morning, skip breakfast, scroll through their phone, get lost in notifications, and arrive at the day already behind. From there, it's a series of reactions instead of creation. No wonder they feel overwhelmed. Their routine wasn't designed. It was defaulted, and default routines never lead to deliberate results. Building a routine doesn't mean you live like a robot. It means you create structure that supports freedom. The freedom to think clearly, to act intentionally, to focus without being pulled in 100 directions. When you know what you're supposed to be doing at 7 a.m. or 10 a.m. or 8 p.m., you eliminate wasted time. You eliminate indecision, and that clarity turns into energy, because nothing drains motivation more than constantly wondering what to do next. Every high achiever understands this. Whether they are in business, athletics, the arts, or leadership, they have structure. They plan their days with purpose. They schedule what matters. Not just meetings and deadlines, but workouts, reading, deep work, quiet thinking time, because they know that what gets scheduled gets done. And what gets done repeatedly shapes results. The beauty of a daily routine is that it removes the emotion from the process. You don't ask, "Do I feel like doing this?" You already decided ahead of time. You trust the system. You know it's moving you forward. And when you start seeing the results, more energy, sharper thinking, improved relationships, growing finances, you begin to respect the process even more. It becomes a source of pride. Routines are also how you reclaim your time. In a world full of distractions, routines become boundaries. They protect your focus. They shield your energy. When your routine includes specific times for deep work, rest, learning, and even fun, you start operating from a position of control. You no longer live on other people's timelines. You no longer chase every notification or react to every request. You act from design, not demand, and yet a routine doesn't have to be rigid. It's flexible when needed, but it has a strong core. It adapts, but it doesn't collapse. Life will throw curveballs. That's normal. But when you have a routine, you recover faster. You bounce back with less confusion because you don't have to start from scratch. You just return to the rhythm. The most underrated part of a daily routine is how it strengthens your self-respect. Every time you follow through on what you said you'd do, you build trust with yourself. That inner trust becomes confidence, and confidence isn't built by affirmations. It's built by actions. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who lives with discipline, someone who makes things happen, and that identity shift is powerful, because once you see yourself that way, it becomes easier to keep going. You no longer have to get motivated. You just act like the person you've already become. Your routine is your silent coach. It trains you without speaking. It pushes you without yelling. It molds you every day you follow it. And what it molds is not just your schedule, but your character. Because you are what you repeatedly do. Excellence, as they say, is not an act. It's a habit. Designing a strong daily routine doesn't take genius. It takes intention. You start small. You pick a few key habits. Wake up at the same time. Spend 10 minutes in silence or reading. Move your body. Review your goals. Plan your top 3 priorities. Avoid distractions during focused work time. Rest well. Reflect at the end of the day. These seem simple, and they are, but don't mistake simple for insignificant, because these small daily disciplines are the foundation upon which greatness is built. Progress isn't built in one grand leap, it's built one small step at a time. The mistake most people make is thinking that change has to be dramatic in order to be effective. They believe if they're not overhauling their entire life in one go, they're not doing enough. But the truth is, massive success is often the result of tiny, consistent efforts that accumulate over time. 1 inch of progress every day may not look like much, but stack those inches over weeks and months, and you'll find yourself miles ahead. Consistency beats intensity when intensity can't be sustained. Anyone can sprint for a short distance, but how many people can walk the same path daily without quitting? The person who does a little bit each day, rain or shine, builds more resilience, more mastery, and more credibility with themselves than the one who charges forward with energy only to burn out shortly after. Small, consistent steps develop habits, habits shape identity, and identity determines the course of your life. People often chase the feeling of motivation, waiting for that spark to move them. But that spark is unreliable. Some days it shows up, most days it doesn't. What you can rely on is action, small action, doable action, action that doesn't require heroic effort but builds momentum. Momentum is powerful. Once it starts, it makes the next step easier. The key is to keep the momentum alive with just enough action that it never stops. Even if progress slows, forward is forward. The reason small steps are so powerful is because they lower the barrier to starting. You don't need to be in the perfect mood. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need a decision and a little discipline. If you set the bar low enough to begin, you eliminate most of the resistance that usually stops people before they even get going. 1 push-up leads to 2. Reading 1 page often turns into 5. Writing a few lines turns into a paragraph, then a page. The hardest part is starting. Small steps make starting easy. Another reason to value small, consistent progress is that it protects you from overwhelm. When you look at the full scope of your goal, it can feel daunting. If you focus on how far you still have to go, you can paralyze yourself with doubt. But if you bring your attention to what you can do today, just one thing that moves you forward, the task becomes manageable. And manageable tasks build confidence. When you complete even one small thing, your brain registers it as a win. That win creates momentum. That momentum feeds motivation. It becomes a loop. Small win, more confidence, more action, more results. Small steps also build discipline. Every time you follow through on a small promise to yourself, you reinforce your own integrity. You prove to yourself that you're capable, that you're reliable, that you're moving. Discipline isn't about harsh rules. It's about self-respect. When you consistently do the small things, you send a message to yourself that your future matters. That message starts to shape your identity. You're no longer someone who tries. You become someone who does asterisk. And once your identity shifts, your behavior follows with less resistance. Small, consistent steps also help you refine your strategy along the way. When you make slow, steady progress, you get constant feedback. You start to see what works, what doesn't, what needs adjusting. If you move too fast, you miss these insights. But with slow and steady action, you stay close to the process. You stay aware, You become a student of your own growth, and that awareness leads to smarter action. Smart action compounds results. It's not just about working hard, it's about working wisely, and wisdom grows through consistency and observation. Taking small steps also builds resilience. Life will throw obstacles your way, plans will get disrupted, unexpected problems will arise. If you're only making progress when everything is perfect, your growth will be fragile. But if you're committed to small steps regardless of the chaos, you build a kind of strength that can't be shaken. You keep going even if the progress is slower. You adapt, adjust, and continue. That type of consistency in the face of adversity becomes an unstoppable force over time. People admire greatness, but they often forget that greatness is built in the shadows. Early mornings, late nights, quiet moments of practice, lonely hours of effort. That's where the small steps live. They're not loud, they're not glamorous, but they are sacred because they're the foundation of everything meaningful. One good choice followed by another, one disciplined hour followed by another. This is how transformation happens, not overnight, but over time. The compound effect is one of the most powerful forces in life. A 1% improvement every day doesn't just make you 365% better in a year. It compounds far beyond that, because each improvement builds upon the last. Each day you grow, you bring more skill, more confidence, more clarity into the next day. This compounding growth is invisible at first, but then suddenly it becomes undeniable. People call it an overnight success, but it's not. It's the result of invisible effort, stacked daily, patiently, persistently. The discipline of taking small steps every day teaches you humility. It reminds you that mastery isn't achieved by sudden genius, but by enduring commitment. It reminds you that showing up is more important than showing off. That persistence will always outlast talent when talent fails to stay consistent. You don't need to be the smartest, fastest, or strongest. You just need to be consistent enough to keep showing up, day after day, inch by inch. Even in difficult seasons, small steps matter, especially in difficult seasons. When everything feels heavy, when motivation is nowhere to be found, when the world feels too loud, taking one step, no matter how small, is an act of defiance against mediocrity. It says, I'm still in the game, I still believe in where I'm going, I'm not quitting. That kind of mindset is rare. But it's what separates those who eventually win from those who give up too soon. Progress isn't always exciting. It's often repetitive, quiet, and slow. But don't mistake slow progress for no progress. Sometimes the most powerful growth is happening underground where no one can see it. Building roots, developing strength, preparing for the breakthrough. Your job isn't to rush the process. Your job is to trust the process. To keep planting seeds even when the harvest hasn't shown up yet. Small steps also keep you connected to the present moment. They remind you that everything you want in life begins now, not tomorrow. Not someday, but with the next decision, the next action, the next commitment. It all starts with what you do today, right now, because what you do today is what shapes who you become tomorrow. And if you keep moving forward, even by a single inch, you're making progress. You're winning, you're becoming. What you feed your mind determines how you live your life. Your inputs shape your perspective, your mindset, your decisions, and eventually your results. Just like your body reflects what you eat, your mind reflects what you consume. You can't expect to grow, to think clearly, to stay focused, or to make meaningful progress if your mental diet is full of distractions, noise, and negativity. Progress begins in the mind, and the mind is only as strong as the quality of what it regularly absorbs. We live in an age where information is endless, but wisdom is rare. There's no shortage of content, videos, posts, podcasts, opinions, but most of it is noise, not nourishment. The danger isn't just bad information. It's constant information. When your mind is always full, it never has room to think. Without time to reflect, to process, and to apply what truly matters, even the good inputs can become overwhelming. That's why it's not just about consuming more, it's about consuming intentionally. Every day, you are being shaped by what you watch, what you read, who you listen to, and who you spend time with. Whether you realize it or not, those inputs are influencing the way you think about yourself, about others, about the world, and about what's possible for your future. If you're surrounded by negativity, you start to adopt a pessimistic outlook. If you're constantly exposed to fear, your confidence erodes. If you spend your time with people who complain and blame, you begin to lower your own standards to match theirs. But if you feed your mind with truth, with discipline, with purpose-driven content, your thinking changes. You start to believe in possibilities again. You start to operate from a place of hope instead of fear, from faith instead of doubt. The right inputs fuel your motivation, sharpen your thinking, and keep your vision alive. That's why you must protect your mental environment like you protect your physical health. Garbage in, garbage out. But wisdom in, purpose in, excellence in. Those inputs produce a completely different life. One of the most powerful ways to guard your inputs is to audit your environment. Start with the people closest to you. Do they push you to grow, or do they pull you into comfort? Do they challenge your thinking, or do they drain your energy? The people you spend the most time with are either a mirror of your potential or a reflection of your limits. You don't have to cut everyone out of your life, but you do have to be intentional. Who are your expanders? Who makes you think bigger, act bolder, and live more purposefully? Those are the voices you need more of. Next, examine your digital inputs. What fills your feed every day? Who do you follow? What kind of content are you scrolling through mindlessly? It might seem harmless in the moment, but those images, those videos, those messages, they are shaping your values and priorities, sometimes without your awareness. If your feed is full of distractions, gossip, fear, and comparison, you can't expect to wake up inspired and focused. Your digital space should reflect the life you're trying to build. If you want discipline, follow those who practice it. If you want success, study the habits of those who have earned it. If you want peace, stop feeding your mind with chaos. Books, podcasts, conversations, and even silence. These are tools for shaping the mind. Make learning a daily habit, not a once-in-a-while event. Read biographies of people who overcame. Listen to audio that strengthens your mindset. Reflect in silence, even if for 5 minutes a day. Not everything valuable is loud. Sometimes the quietest moments bring the clearest wisdom. Make time for stillness so you can hear your own thoughts, not just the voices of the world. Guarding your inputs also means being aware of what you say to yourself. Yourself is one of the most consistent inputs you have. If you constantly speak in limitation, in fear, in defeat, your mind starts to accept it as truth. You become the story you repeat most often. That's why it matters what you think when no one else is watching. That's why it matters what you tell yourself after a failure or in the middle of a challenge. Train your internal dialogue to match the life you want to live. Speak to yourself with respect, with belief, with responsibility. The right inputs help you stay on course when distractions try to knock you off. Because progress isn't just about doing more, it's about doing the right things. And you can't do the right things if your thinking is clouded. Clarity is the result of quality thinking, and quality thinking is the result of quality inputs. It's a chain reaction. Feed your mind garbage and your thinking will follow. Feed it excellence and your actions will elevate. You don't rise above your inputs. You rise with them. If you want to operate on a higher level, you need to think on a higher level. And if you want to think on a higher level, you need to expose yourself to higher level ideas, people, and conversations. Inspiration doesn't come out of nowhere. It's ignited by exposure. You grow by stretching yourself beyond your comfort zone, by seeking out wisdom that challenges you, by surrounding yourself with inputs that reflect your best, not your worst. When you start choosing your inputs with intention, you begin to notice shifts in your behavior. You're less reactive and more thoughtful. You're less distracted and more focused. You're less driven by comparison and more driven by purpose. You begin to rise above the noise of the world and live from a deeper place of clarity and conviction. That shift doesn't happen overnight, but it begins the moment you decide to take control of what you allow into your mind. Being selective about your inputs isn't about pretending the world is perfect. It's about choosing what strengthens you instead of what weakens you. It's about building a mindset that can withstand challenge, endure delay, and stay locked in on what matters. A well-fed mind becomes a weapon against mediocrity. It becomes your defense against self-doubt, your anchor in uncertainty, your compass in chaos. Your inputs either build you up or break you down. They either move you forward or hold you back. They either expand your vision or limit your belief. And you are the gatekeeper. No one else can filter your inputs for you. No one else decides what you allow into your mental space. That responsibility is yours. That power is yours. Use it wisely, because every input is shaping your future. What you don't measure, you can't improve. If you're not tracking your progress, you're guessing, and guessing is no way to build a disciplined, successful life. Progress is not just about action. It's about *aware action. You have to know what's working and what's not. You have to know where your time is going, where your energy is being used, and whether the path you're on is actually taking you to the destination you want. Without measurement, your efforts become scattered. You may be busy, but you won't know if you're actually moving forward. Tracking creates clarity. It turns vague ambition into visible data. It gives you feedback, and feedback is the foundation of growth. If you want to lose weight, you weigh yourself. If you want to grow your finances, you check your bank balance. If you want to get better at your craft, you track hours of practice, improvement in skill, quality of output. The act of tracking brings your goal into focus. It makes the invisible visible. It gives you something to aim at and something to measure against. The moment you start writing things down, something shifts. You become more responsible. You become more intentional. Even the simple act of journaling your habits, waking time, workout, reading, tasks completed, can raise your awareness to a whole new level. You no longer rely on memory or perception, which are often flawed. You deal with facts, and facts tell the truth. Maybe you think you're being productive, but your tracking shows hours lost to distractions. Maybe you feel like you're making progress, but your results haven't improved in weeks. That insight doesn't discourage, it empowers. It gives you a mirror, and once you see the truth, you can do something about it. People avoid tracking because it forces honesty, it exposes gaps, it reveals inconsistency. But that's exactly why it's valuable. You don't grow by hiding from your weaknesses. You grow by identifying them and creating a plan to improve. Tracking isn't about perfection, it's about awareness. When you know better, you can do better. When you see clearly, you can adjust accurately. That's how real progress is made. Tracking also builds momentum. When you see daily evidence of effort, even if the results aren't there yet, you feel motivated to keep going. Progress is often invisible for a while. You may be building discipline, refining technique, learning lessons, but if you're not tracking, it's easy to forget how far you've come. It's easy to think nothing is changing when in reality, you're evolving. But a log, a journal, a scoreboard, it reminds you. It says, look at the pattern, look at the consistency, look at the effort. That record of work becomes fuel to push through resistance. Another benefit of tracking is that it gives you data to evaluate your strategy. If you're trying to grow a business, improve your health, develop a new skill, or reach a financial target, tracking helps you isolate what's working. You can review the week, the month, the quarter, and ask, what did I do well? What produced results? What wasted time or energy? Without tracking, those insights get lost in the noise. You might continue doing things that aren't useful simply because you don't know any better. But with measurement, you become your own analyst. You adjust based on evidence, not emotion. You make smarter moves. Tracking also introduces accountability, not just to others, but to yourself. You can't lie to a journal. You can't deceive a spreadsheet. When you're tracking, you confront your patterns. You see how often you skip the habit. You see how many times you said tomorrow, and while that can sting, it also creates an opportunity. You can correct course, you can build new patterns, you can take control instead of living in denial. That kind of accountability is rare, but it's the foundation of self-mastery. There's also a psychological shift that occurs when you begin measuring. The very act of tracking turns the abstract into something concrete. It reinforces the seriousness of your goal. It changes the way you approach your day. You start to think in terms of cause and effect. If I do this, that happens. If I don't do this, that doesn't happen. You begin to see your habits not as isolated choices, but as links in a chain. That awareness helps you stay consistent, because you start to value the chain. You protect your streak. You don't want to break the flow. That's how habits solidify. That's how goals are reached. Tracking also brings structure to your reflection. Most people think about their goals at the beginning of the year, maybe revisit them once or twice, and then drift. But those who track are in a constant loop of action and evaluation. They don't wait for a new year to reflect. They do it weekly, even daily, and those small reflection points add up. They prevent you from going too far in the wrong direction. They help you recalibrate before small errors become big problems. That kind of real time adjustment can save you months or even years of wasted effort. There are many ways to track progress. Some people use journals. Others use apps or spreadsheets. Some create habit trackers, bullet points, scoreboards, time logs. The method doesn't matter as much as the commitment. What's important is that you make tracking a regular practice, not an occasional exercise. You make it part of your routine. You attach it to the habit itself. After you read, log the minutes. After you work out, mark it down. After you finish a project, note the outcome. Over time, those records become a story. They tell the story of your effort, your learning, your persistence. Tracking also helps you set better goals. Vague goals produce vague action. But when you track, you see what's realistic. You understand your pace. You get better at estimating effort and time. You learn how to break big goals into smaller, measurable pieces. That skill of goal setting based on data, not emotion, separates dreamers from doers, because doers don't just wish. They plan, they execute, they measure, they adjust. Another subtle but important benefit of tracking is the internal reward it provides. Every time you record a win, no matter how small, your brain gets a hit of achievement. That dopamine release reinforces the behavior. It creates a loop: act, track, feel progress, act again. That loop is powerful. It turns effort into satisfaction. It turns routine into reward. Over time, you crave the feeling of tracking a win. You don't want to miss a day, and that craving fuels consistency. Even in the moments where progress feels slow or the goal feels far away, tracking keeps you anchored. It reminds you that the work is happening. It reminds you that you're not starting from zero. It reminds you that effort has been invested, that discipline has been practiced, and that momentum is building. And in a world full of distractions and doubts, that kind of reminder can be the difference between quitting and continuing. Everyone wants motivation, but what they truly need is discipline. Motivation is like the wind, it comes and goes. It's emotional. It's tied to how you feel, what's going on around you, the weather, your energy levels, your mood. You wake up one day inspired and ready to take on the world, and the next day, for no particular reason, you don't want to do anything. If your progress depends on that kind of unstable fuel, you're in trouble. Motivation might get you started, but it will never keep you going. Discipline is what makes progress inevitable, no matter what's happening around you. Discipline is the decision to act regardless of how you feel. It's the ability to say, I will, even when everything inside you says, I don't want to. It's built in the small moments, when you wake up early despite being tired, when you go to the gym even though it's raining, when you do the work when no one's watching. Discipline is boring, it's repetitive, it's thankless, but it's the foundation of every great achievement. Success doesn't come from bursts of energy. It comes from steady, relentless commitment. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. People often wait for motivation to strike. They wait to feel ready, but life doesn't wait. Goals don't wait. If you want progress every day, you can't afford to be driven by your feelings. You must be driven by your values, your standards, your priorities. Motivation is emotional, but discipline is strategic. Discipline says, this is who I am now, this is what I do, whether I feel like it or not. And once you adopt that identity, you begin to win on a different level. You stop relying on mood, and you start relying on mastery. Discipline builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you strengthen your internal integrity. You start to believe in your own word. You begin to see yourself as someone who finishes what they start. That belief fuels consistency, and consistency is the master key. You can make up for a lack of talent with consistency. You can overcome obstacles, outlast competition, and outwork everyone around you with the quiet power of discipline. It's not about going fast, it's about going daily. It's about showing up again and again, especially when it's hard. Most people chase the high of motivation because discipline is uncomfortable. It forces you to face resistance. It pushes you to act when you're tired, when you're uninspired, when the results aren't showing yet. But that's exactly when discipline matters most. Anyone can work when it's easy. The question is, can you keep working when it's not? Can you hold the line when no one's clapping, when progress is slow, when distractions are loud? If you can, you'll separate yourself from the masses. You'll become the kind of person who doesn't just dream but executes, and that difference makes all the difference. Discipline isn't about being rigid or harsh with yourself. It's about creating systems that make success easier. It's about building habits that remove the need for decision making. You don't need to wake up every day and ask, should I work out? Should I read? Should I build my business today? No, you already decided. You built a schedule, you follow it, that removes friction. It eliminates debate, and over time it reduces the mental load. The more you rely on discipline, the less you rely on willpower, because discipline turns choices into defaults. You no longer ask if, you just do. There's also a freedom in discipline that most people don't realize. At first glance, discipline looks like restriction, but in truth, it creates control. It gives you power over your time, your habits, your outcomes. When you live by discipline, you're not a slave to chaos. You're not reactive. You don't panic when things go wrong because your habits keep you anchored. You don't waste time wondering what to do next because your systems are in place. Discipline creates structure, and structure creates freedom. It allows you to perform with purpose rather than emotion. Discipline also builds momentum. One disciplined act leads to another. You eat a clean meal, you want to work out. You wake up early, you want to read. You finish your tasks on time, you feel capable. That momentum grows, and before you know it, your entire day is moving in the direction of progress. But the opposite is also true. Skip one habit, and it's easier to skip another. Miss one day, and the second is easier to miss. That's why discipline is so critical. It breaks the cycle of inconsistency and builds the chain of daily action. Another truth about discipline is that it reveals your priorities. You can say you want to grow, but discipline shows whether that desire is real. Talk is easy, action is rare. Everyone wants the outcome, fewer are willing to do the work. But when you live with discipline, your actions speak louder than your words. You no longer talk about change. You become the change, and that transformation affects every area of life. Discipline at the gym creates discipline in your career. Discipline in your finances strengthens your mindset. It's all connected. Master one area and the benefits spill over. Discipline also develops resilience. It trains you to act under pressure. It teaches you how to show up when it's inconvenient, uncomfortable, uncertain. And that kind of training is invaluable because life won't always cooperate. You'll face setbacks, distractions, temptations. You'll deal with people who don't support your goals, environments that pull you off track, and moments of deep doubt. But if you've been training discipline, you'll endure. You won't fold at the first sign of struggle. You won't abandon your path because the conditions aren't perfect. You'll keep walking. That's the real win. Not the outcome, but the persistence that earns it. One of the great benefits of discipline is that it simplifies life. You don't need 100 productivity hacks. You don't need endless motivation videos. You just need the discipline to do what you said you would do. It's not about hype, it's about habits. It's not about inspiration, it's about execution. When you know what matters and you act on it daily, everything else becomes noise. You stop chasing shiny objects. You stop comparing your journey to others. You just do the work, and in time, the work works on you. It builds you into someone stronger, sharper, more grounded. Discipline also creates peace of mind. When you've done your work, when you've honored your plan, when you've kept your commitments, you sleep better. You don't carry the weight of regret. You don't have to explain excuses. You don't feel behind. You can rest, not because you avoided the hard things, but because you faced them. That peace isn't loud, but it's powerful. It's the kind of peace that comes from living aligned with your values, and it's worth more than any short-term comfort motivation offers. Over time, the fruits of discipline compound. At first, you may not notice the difference, but after weeks, months, and years of consistent effort, the gap between the disciplined and the distracted becomes massive. The person who relies on motivation keeps starting and stopping. The person who relies on discipline keeps going. They become more skilled, more focused, more capable. They move past the noise and into mastery. Not because they had more energy or more support, but because they had more self-control. And that control becomes the edge, not just in work, but in life.